Coming up on Tech News Today, we'll tell you what's hottest about the new Nokia Windows phones. Also, will Android-ers switch to iPhone? And what the candidates say about the internet. All that more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, September 5th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your iPhone, iPad, MacBook, or Android smartphones. Find out what your gadget is worth and get cash to upgrade to the latest iPhone at Gazelle.com. And by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website or blog, plus more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT9. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz, Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we try to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting every time with the top 10 stories of the day in the News Fuse. Nokia announced their first Windows Phones 8, the Nokia Lumia 920 and the Lumia 820. The flagship Lumia 920 features wireless charging, an 8.7 megapixel camera, 4.5-inch screen, which they claim will be better than HD, and a Snapdragon S4 processor. In addition to lots of camera features, Nokia also added in offline maps with turn-by-turn navigation, a capacitive display that works with gloves on, important in Finland. No price or availability was announced, however.
Say hello to the Contour 2 camera. It shoots video at up to 1080p or even 120 frames per second if you're shooting at 480p res. Comes with a waterproof case. Also comes with a couple of adhesive mounts for interesting point of view shots. The 2 stores everything on a 4GB micro SD card and can stream live video using the mini HDMI port. GPS can track everything that you do. You can add a map of your route with speed and distance data and edit your videos using the free Storyteller app for Mac and PC. All this for $400.
Yesterday, Anti-Sec said that it hacked an FBI laptop to obtain Apple UDID information. The FBI is denying that one of its laptops was hacked. On Twitter, the agency said, quote, "We never had info in question. Bottom line, totally false," all caps. So where did that information come from? We don't know yet.
Starting September 21st, the U.S. FCC will hold an open meeting to discuss the most appropriate methods for gathering and analyzing mobile broadband information. The initiative is part of the annual Measuring Broadband America report, a report that is meant to help customers evaluate the reality of their broadband options, including real-world speed. They've only done wireline till now. Good to see them add mobile.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg isn't going anywhere, or at least his shares aren't anytime soon. Yesterday, he informed the SEC that he has no plans to sell any of his stock over the next year, and Facebook is canceling a secondary stock offering. The company is also allowing employees to sell up to 234 million shares 2 weeks sooner than the original November 14th lockup expiration date, where the other 777 million go free. So, no secondary stock, stagger the sell-off, make the big guys hold on to their shares a little longer, and maybe, just maybe, that stock price will stop falling.
In the World Series of IP cases, Judge William Alsup has ordered Oracle to pay Google $1 million to cover expenses incurred by a court-appointed expert. Google had asked for over $4 million for legal costs, but didn't get it. The court is also done trying to find out which company paid which journalists or bloggers. In case you've blocked out this entire case from your mind, Oracle sued Google over Java-related patents and copyrights, and it lost the case.
I never got paid. No Contract Phones got another outlet as Radio Shack confirmed its partnership with Leap Wireless through its Cricket subsidiary. The Shack will sell a feature phone and a smartphone from Huawei, along with no contract service plans. The phones will be available via Radio Shack stores nationwide beginning Wednesday. That's today.
For the first time since the October 2011 launch of the iPhone 4S, it is not the top-selling phone in the U.S. That crown goes to Samsung's Galaxy S3. At least it did last month. Canaccord Genuity's Michael Walkley said this is just temporary, as would-be iPhone buyers are understandably holding off until Apple's announcement next week. But the Galaxy S3 was the top-selling smartphone on Verizon, on Sprint, and on T-Mobile, although the iPhone 4S kept its top spot on AT&T.
The Democratic National Convention became the latest victim of copyright confusion. Shortly after Michelle Obama's speech last night, the live stream on YouTube.com and Barack Obama's website was not available for replay, but instead displayed a message saying it contained content from WMG, SME, Associated Press, UMG, Dow Jones, New York Times Digital, the Harry Fox Agency, Warner Chappell, UMPG Publishing, and EMI Music Publishing. YouTube said the message was an error. No kidding.
Just brilliant. What's this? Another law story. Samsung filed for an injunction against LG, saying LG leaked info about confidential technologies related to OLED screens. Samsung is looking for damages of 1 billion won, or that's about $880,000 United States dollars, for each case where LG used the tech or leaked those details to third parties. Samsung says that LG has tried to acquire its OLED technology by trying to poach its researchers.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Gazelle. Now more than ever, when 500 smartphones will be announced this month, you might need a little extra cash if you're tempted to get one of them. And I can't say that I know a simpler or faster way to sell stuff. I do it all the time on Gazelle.com. You go there. You type in here's how you go there. You type in GAZELLE.com. That's Gazelle. And then they've made it as easy as possible to pick which device you're selling. You got a MacBook, you click on the picture of the MacBook. You got an iPhone Classic, you pick a picture on that. You click on the cell phones, it takes you all the Android phones you can sell. Then you tell them what condition it's in. They give you a quote, and you lock that quote in for 30 days. You don't want to delay doing this because the longer you wait, the less valuable phone gets. So if you got a BlackBerry RIM, you got an HTC phone, you even got the Fascinate, the Galaxy Nexus, those are all up there. Go check it out. Tell them what condition your phone is in. Be honest. They're going to check it. You know what? They'd even upgrade it if they find out you were too hard on yourself. So be as honest as you can. Lock in that offer. And then you can print out a shipping label and get paid fast. You get paid by PayPal. You can get paid by check. Or you can even get paid by Amazon gift certificate. They give you 5% extra if you pick that one. What's your old phone worth? Take a minute. Go to Gazelle.com to find out. Sell your used iPhone today and get ready for a new one. Maybe you'll switch to Android. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. You can get cash. The cash works on all the platforms. It's multi-platform at Gazelle.com, and we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, let's bring in our guest for today's show, Ken Denmead, New York Times bestselling author and editor of the Geek Dad blog at Wired.com. How's it going, Ken?
It's going great. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Hey, it's great to have you back. We got a lot to talk about today. Nokia spending an hour and 20 minutes announcing two phones.
Two phones, yeah. Most of it was on that first phone, the Lumia 920, which is the new flagship phone. So lots of specs, lots of information out of Nokia world. Curved 4.5-inch screen with a WXGA display that's 1280 by 768, which is better than 720p, which is by about like 40 pixels. Dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor from Snapdragon, NFC, wireless charging, and it seems like they have a bunch of accessories to go with that. 8-megapixel camera that they're calling PureView, even though it's not the 41-megapixel PureView camera that Nokia introduced a while ago. Showing off a lot of location services with that City Lens application, which is that augmented reality application that shows you like commute times, restaurant information, shopping information. And City Lens also works on Nokia Maps and any other of the Nokia location services apps. They were spending a lot of time talking about the display, saying it's blur-free scrolling. We've seen like Google talked about this with Android, saying, okay, we're going to make it a lot smoother. They have this as well.
What did they call it? HD Plus or something? They said
Nokia
it's better
Pure
than
Motion HD Plus is the actual name.
What? It's 1280 by 768,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They also have their clear black display. Now they wanted to make sure that you could use the City Lens app in with the sunlight, right? So they're saying that with their new clear black, you could see the display in the desert. So they're saying that you could really use this. I'm not really sure how this is going to work that way.
I'm not sure how much augmented reality you need in the desert, but maybe at Burning Man.
Maybe if you want to check out what's that commute time to that cactus over there. Maybe.
Yeah, this would be a real hit with the burners.
that super sensitive.
Get your Lumia ordered
I'm looking
now.
for my friend's art installation. How do I get there? See, it points the way, right?
There's also that super sensitive display which lets you touch the screen with gloves. They would spend a lot of time showing that off for some reason.
Because they're in Finland, dude.
Yeah,
I guess
or just anywhere that people.
This is going to go over really big in Minnesota.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? I ran into this instance at DragonCon. People who are cosplaying, have gloves on, can't use their phones.
And you have to have those special little gloves, and they cost a lot. And this would
there's a marketing niche to go after right there. Sell it. This is the cosplayer's phone.
Right.
Cosplayer's phone or the skier's phone, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, Nokia spent a lot of time talking about charging abilities with their wireless charging using Qi, which is that standard that I think Duracell's behind, and PowerMat. So you'll be able to charge your phones because they have deals at Virgin Atlantic and the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. They're going to have charging plates at like these little stations, so you could just put your Nokia phone down and charge your phone when you're getting coffee or if you're at the Virgin Atlantic lounge.
Virgin Atlantic, not Virgin America.
Right, Virgin Atlantic. So they showed some really nice-looking lounges, which I've never seen the insides of. Personally, I'm sure that if you are part of that special club, you could do that. Coffee
Bean and Tea Leaf, there's 1,000,001 of them in the greater Los Angeles area.
Yeah, they're all over the place down there.
But I don't...
There's one in downtown San Francisco, I know for sure. I think there's a couple others around here.
All right.
They're nationwide-ish.
It's a regional thing, though, more.
Aren't they big in
I've never
Chicago?
seen...
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's where they're out of. But these are good-looking phones. I got to say, this is impressing me. I think this is how you make a phone that's not going to get you sued. And it's gorgeous. I think, and it's going to stand out in stores. I think people are going to walk in and the color choices are bold. The UI is looking fantastic. I really like the little feature where you can actually change the color of the icons of your home screen there so that it matches the color of the phone. Have we really seen? Do you see that kind of thing on Android or anything else?
I'm sure you could make it work, but it's not built in and easy like that.
The thing, Ken, you just said they showed off phones, but they spent about 80% talking about the 920, and then for the last couple minutes, oh, by the way, we have the 820, and they just kind of barely rattled off specs. It was only seen in blog posts. 4.3-inch screen, 8 gigabytes of storage, NFC. It's got a smaller battery, and bringing back something Nokia I used to love on my Nokia phone. You could remove the shell, so on the back you could change it from red to blue to whatever color, or you can add wireless charging if you get another shell. Pricing for either of these was not announced. And also, Microsoft showed up with their nice Steve Ballmer and Joe Belfiore.
Joe Belfiore took the first ever screenshot from a Windows phone and posted it on Twitter.
Yes, using the power button and the home button. Pushed them at once.
Hey, wait a minute. Isn't that a patent violation?
I don't think so. I doubt that's
they licensed that one.
Well, so pricing isn't announced, but we assume that the 820 is the upgrade to the 800. Mm-hmm. So it's still in the same $199 range. The 920 are
$299. It's going to be $299, right? It's got to be.
I don't know. It's obviously going to be more. You'd think that if they had it low enough to get people excited, we would have heard what the pricing was already.
Well, maybe they're trying to figure that out. Maybe they want to come out with a $99 and $199. Because remember the 900 was $99 after a while?
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe they're holding off on price because they're trying to make deals with the carriers to subsidize it enough to do that.
Nokia spent a lot of time talking about their camera. Now, the camera assembly it actually has optical image stabilization in a phone. Normally, you don't get that. So they actually did a demo where they showed a video of using some other phone. It looked like a Samsung device and their device on the same rig. And the Nokia experience looked really smooth. It looked
the floating lens. Is that
the whole assembly for the optics are actually suspended, because normally apparently you just do that with the lens with these tiny springs, as one of the engineers was explaining. But because it's so small, they're able to have optical image stabilization of the entire assembly, which to me, when I was seeing the video quality they were showing off, and the way, because of this, you can have a lot more light. When you're looking at light, you have a potential for blur. And Nokia is saying you're not going to have blurry videos or images, even though you're letting in all that light. So I'm really intrigued with this, because they're really pushing that display being something you could show off your photos, and this device could be able to take great video and photos as well. So, I mean, and you could see it in sunlight, theoretically. This is what they're saying.
So really that pure view marketing thing is not intended to confuse people all that much of thinking, oh, it's that 40 megapixel camera. It's just this is the next generation of phones that are going above and beyond what we have to put in here for the camera.
Yeah, it's that new high-end name for that kind of thing. I mean, I'm thinking this actually is, even though Apple's announcement's coming up and Nokia and Motorola's announcement's coming up, this is a good chance that the Lumia line will stand out. These specs, I think, are going to really win over some spec nerds who are like, oh, well, great, it has a dual-core processor finally. It's got NFC. They even showed off NFC pairing with a wireless speaker device, which didn't work right away. Took 3 tries, but it did work. I was impressed about what Nokia was trying to do with this device, because this is the device they needed last year. but they have it now.
Isn't that always the Microsoft problem, though? Like the Zune came out, and the Zune was excellent, but it was the device they needed a year before.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think right now, because Nokia is going up against what, Samsung right now and HTC, there's not a whole lot of competitors for Nokia when it comes to Windows Phone 8, especially the way Nokia's gone in, because they also have their exclusive apps. So they have a differentiator that's a little different. So maybe this iteration for Nokia is very similar to Microsoft, where it's, oh, okay, finally we're on track. But I think, again, the last generation was to not screw up the re-entry in the U.S. market. And I think they managed to not mess up too badly.
There's a lot of good pieces here. I think the camera is a very good piece. That's never the most important for myself personally, but you shouldn't discount it. It's a great camera. Lots of good imaging features in here. Also, the NFC I think is going to be intriguing for a lot of people. It's a flashy feature. I don't think it's worth it, but I think a lot of people will be impressed by it. It's a good sales point. I think the wireless charging is great. I think that's fantastic, and I also think that the offline maps. The fact that you don't have to have an internet connection and you can still get turn-by-turn navigation with all of the maps downloaded, and you didn't have to go tell it what maps to download. It works like an old-fashioned GPS device. I think that's really compelling as well. I just don't know that it's got enough to really turn ahead away from an iPhone, and that's what it really needs to do if it wants to blow up. It's got enough to compete, no doubt about that. Microsoft has done a great job here. But Ken, do you think this will make people say, I would like to have that phone over all other phones?
I think so. I think, first of all, I think there's a lot of softness in the Samsung, in the Android market. And if somebody saw a strong high-end phone that wasn't an iPhone, you probably got still a few iPhone haters out there, that was offering a new and different experience, I think people would jump for that. I think, there's probably still people that are coming off of BlackBerries in the corporate environment and will look at the Windows integration as being something attractive. In fact, they may be saying, finally, what I really wanted out of a Windows phone is here. So they'll jump on that too. And as I said, I think this is a really good looking phone, and it differentiates itself from everything else that you'll see in a phone store, in its design and its appearance, the UI look, and all of that. Of anything that's come along in the last year or two, I think this one has a chance. It may not beat an iPhone, it may not beat the Galaxy S3, but it may start pulling in some percentage points and making a profit, and give Nokia the boost that it needs to keep building.
It's funny. When Nokia said, I think it was Stephen Elop said they were going to become the Wear company, I kind of snickered at that. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to be the Wear company? You want to be
that when the moon goes full, they will turn from a company into a wolf.
to a Lumia.
A very furry phone.
But the amount of location services and the applications that they showed off, if City Lens works the way it's supposed to, because I mean, if you ever used the Yelp app on an iOS device and use the monocle,
yeah,
very similar, but this is supposed to work apparently a lot better, because the monocle I found a little iffy.
No, it's a neat concept. Do you ever use it in practice?
With an iPad, it looks ridiculous, so no. But I think with a phone, and especially with Nokia's mapping, they have a ton of map data. They'll be able to do a lot of things that competitors just can't. And if you have a good screen and you can actually see, if you can actually use this practically, I'm thinking this is something that Google's wanted to do for a very long time. If you can just hold up this device and just look around, obviously Google wants it in your eye with that little Google glasses.
Right. And I think that's actually where it's going to end up being most useful eventually. But that's a ways down the road, right?
I think that's a couple of years from now. But I think Nokia's got, I think with their combination of every little thing that they've added to this device, I think they actually have a real flagship for once, as opposed to last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what we're seeing here is a very solid phone. I think that we're probably not seeing a date, mostly because they're not ready to announce a Windows Phone 8 date yet. We know the date for Windows 8, and I think they're still trying to determine the date to release the actual operating system. So they're just not ready to make that pricing availability. I think it might be smart to not release that yet, because you can do another press release announcement after all these other phones are announced in a couple of weeks and maybe gain a little attention again. And you know what, Ken? I think you made a really good point about the BlackBerry users that are still out there and are sadly probably giving up on RIM because there's no BlackBerry OS 10 coming this holiday season. They may look at this and say, though Microsoft runs my enterprise, might as well go for a Microsoft phone. I think that could be one of the saving graces for Windows Phone here.
I think, yeah, there's softness out there. You know, the whole smartphone market is still growing and expanding, and this phone has a good chance of picking up some of that loose change.
The last bit they need is developers. In fact, Steve Ballmer came out on stage and said, I predict that the next developer to make it big will make it big developing an app for Windows Phone. Now, Ballmer always says crazy, awesome, forward-looking things like that, and he's not always proven true. It's his cheerleader aspect. But what do you think the actual percentage chance is that would happen?
Well, I mean, they showed off Windows Phone 7 apps running on Windows Phone 8, so they still have that catalog of applications that'll run. But the fact that they've taken that kernel and put it from Windows and put it into Windows Phone 8, that it makes it a lot easier to take what was known as Metro, those apps, over to Windows Phone 8. The fact that you can go that way easily, I think that's really going to get Microsoft and Windows Phone just a tremendous bump in application, just numbers at that point. Quality applications, I think that'll come in time, but they're going to be able to boast a huge catalog just because they've made it easy to take developers from their main real platform, that one that gets developers all the time. That's Windows. If they can have just 1 or 2% of them trickle down, that's going to be a ton of developers for Windows Phone 8.
All right, we've got more phones coming to talk about in the coming weeks, but real quickly, let's talk about Radio Shack getting into the phone provision business. They're partnering up with Cricket Wireless, that's Leap Wireless's subsidiary, to do no-contract phones. We talked a lot really recently about how no-contract phones are becoming more and more popular here in the United States. So here's what they're putting out there. I'm going to go through the specs real quickly. I just want to go around the horn and get everybody's opinion on these. They'll do a feature phone with unlimited data, texting, call waiting, and three-way calling. For $25 a month, you get 300 minutes. For $35 a month, you get 1,000 minutes. The Huawei Pillar is the phone. It's $40. That's a feature phone, so you can do unlimited data because it can't do as much data as a full-on smartphone, right? The smartphone plan gives you unlimited access to Move Music, comes with an 8-gigabyte memory card, and gives you, for $50 a month, unlimited voice and your first gig at 3G speeds. After that, you get unlimited data, but at slower speeds, possibly. They guarantee your first gig at 3G.
Oh, gigabytes.
$60 a month. You get your first 2.5 gigabytes at 3G, and you get tethering. And this is on the Huawei Mercury Ice, a $150 phone that runs Android 2.3 with a 1.4 gigahertz processor. Now, compare that to another announcement that came today from T-Mobile, that Walmart will be offering a no-contract Samsung Galaxy S2. You have to pay more, $299, but for $30 a month, you get unlimited data with your first 5 gigabytes. 5 gigabytes guaranteed at HSPA plus speeds, unlimited text, but only 100 minutes. So, Sarah, looking at these no-contract phones, any of these compelling? What are your thoughts on these?
Well, I mean, the way that you set it up is, okay, well, you've got really good monthly plans or really good prepaid plans for a feature phone, but the feature phone is very limited.
Right.
Well, me, personally, not going to go back from the smartphone that I already have and I'm used to, so that's out. The Mercury Ice, as a non-Android user, I know enough about Android to know that 2.3 isn't going to be impressing anybody. But again, those plans look a little bit more reasonable. Then you go up to the Galaxy S2, and at this point, when I'm adding up the numbers, I mean, you got $300 for the phone initially, then you got the $30 plan, 5 gigabytes free, unlimited text. 100 minutes for me is like, I could work that out. Not a problem.
It's the big difference, right?
I think for a lot of people, they'll go, ooh, I'd probably go over that certain month. So I'm not sure if I'm willing to cut down my talking that much. But it is interesting that Radio Shack is like, for some people.
For talkers.
For talkers, this is going to be a real challenge.
Jen, what do you think of these?
I'm looking at these, and these are serving two different markets, obviously. The Radio Shack stuff is for the lower end market, for people that actually just want to use a phone for making calls, which seems so strange these days. But and I think there is always going to be a market for those people, or there will be for a long time. You're still going to have that 10 to 20% of people that don't want to don't need a computer in their pocket. They just want something to make calls conveniently. And I think these are going to be excellent choices. Whether or not they're going to be overly, competitive with what people can already get at AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile, who knows? I think the most interesting one here is the Samsung Galaxy S2, because that is a phone that should cost, it's probably what, $199 now, $149 for a proper plan at AT&T or Verizon. So $299 is a little pricey, but to get that unlimited data, that I think a lot of people might well jump at that. That's pretty attractive.
Yeah, you'd make up what you would have paid outright
in
for
a couple of months.
Exactly.
Yeah. And no contract. That's the biggest difference on all of these. No contract at all.
So this is Iyaz's next phone, right?
Possibly. Well, the Samsung Galaxy S2, I was looking at that. I'm just super excited that when one of the low-end phones out there for everybody is Gingerbread 2.3. It's running Gingerbread. Like, that's a pretty dang good operating system. It might not be able to do some of the crazy things that 4.1 can do, but there's so many things that it does beyond a feature phone. So, like, if you're worried about minutes, although with the Radio Shack plans you shouldn't be, you could just put Skype on it. It'll run fine. That's another thing when I was looking at the S2. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I don't need 100 minutes anyway. I probably don't talk 100 minutes per week, let alone on the phone. So I think this device is just, for that price, $299, it's like you can get a Galaxy Player for about $199 or $299, and you don't have any of the radios in there. But just to have this device to have around, just as a phone or not, at $299, to me, that's almost like a compelling PMP or like a mini tablet or something like that, because the community for hacking an S2 is pretty large. So you can probably put 4.1 on there if I wanted to. So I'm kind of excited about this. Yeah, you could definitely do that.
And on AT&T, just to kind of answer that question, $449.99 for the S2, no commitment price. 2-year contract price is $99.99.
Okay. So this is the $299 is a no contract price,
right,
for T-Mobile through Walmart,
right?
But it's not. The subsidized price is lower, but the unsubsidized price is higher through AT&T and the others.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
That's intriguing. Yeah.
And can you get tethering on this plan?
I don't know about the Walmart plan. You do get the tethering with the higher Radio Shack plan, though, which is cool. All right, let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, the new Squarespace.com. Faster and easier than ever to create a high-quality website or blog. Squarespace launched a new content management system. They're calling it the new Squarespace, or Squarespace 6, that makes it even easier to create a website that's HTML5, CSS3, it's fast, it's flexible, but you don't have to know anything about what those acronyms mean if you don't want to. You can get under the hood and tweak that stuff if you want. They always allow that. But the new Squarespace gives your website users the best mobile experience. They develop new templates with mobile-ready responsive design, so your site automatically restructures to any size device. Whether they're using one of these crazy small phones or one of the phablets that are 5 inches or a 7-inch tablet or a 10-inch tablet, Squarespace redoes the template so it looks good on any of those devices and resizes your images so the images fit properly no matter what device you're looking for. 22 images are automatically versioned 7 ways to accommodate viewing, editing, and updating on any size mobile device. New Squarespace, faster and easier than ever, but you don't have to take our word for it. Go try it out yourself, absolutely free. They do not require a credit card. If you're like, well, I want to try it out, but I don't want to give them any of my information, all you need to do is name the site. Try it out. See if you like it. If you do like it, use your credit card to purchase it and use the offer code TNT9. That's the offer code this month. That'll get you 10% off your first purchase on new Squarespace accounts and annual plans. And don't forget, if you buy an annual plan, you get a free domain name. But you don't need a credit card until you decide to buy it. So go try it out right now, squarespace.com. If you do buy it, use that offer code TNT9. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mark Zuckerberg and the great falling stock disaster.
Yeah, so we mentioned in the news views that he has told the SEC, I'm not going to sell any of my stock, of which I have a lot, anytime in the next year. And that's not just for no reason. Facebook stock has been extremely volatile. In fact, yesterday sunk to a new low. It was under $18, I think $17.76 or something like that.
How patriotic.
Yes, exactly. Very patriotic, but still very low and very disappointing to a lot of shareholders. The original Facebook plan, which was an S-1 filing, was Facebook was going to allow 122 million shares into the public market in a secondary offering to pay for taxes involved in settling distribution of pre-2011 RSUs, which are restricted stock units. So there's tax that gets accumulated that ends up being a lot of money. After that, Facebook planned to sell an additional 101 million shares to cover these taxes. Now the share price is so shaky, what Facebook has decided to do, which is more of a prudent measure, is spend some of that $10 billion it raised through its IPO to pay for these taxes in cash. Now, they did raise a lot of money there, so that does make a little bit more sense. Not only that, though, is employees originally were going to be allowed to sell their shares on November 14th. Big lockup expiration for a lot of Facebook employees. These are staggered. We've heard of one of these already, but this was going to be a big one. That's still happening, but Facebook is now allowing employees to sell up to 234 million shares 2 weeks before that original lockup expiration date. They figure some people will exercise this, some people won't. But what this will do will take the pressure off of that November 14th date. Because right now, Facebook stock it's reacting to everything that happens. Analysts say, hey, Facebook's not going to pull in as much money as we thought that they would, which both Morgan Chase and JP Morgan Chase rather and Morgan Stanley have both said. Both analysts from both companies have said that. Morgan Stanley is their lead underwriter too at Facebook, so it doesn't sound that great. But what this does is it takes a little bit of the pressure off November 14th lockup expiration date. That at that point, 777 million shares will go free. So Facebook kind of gets that lockup done with sooner than later. They've got a lot of employees who are going to want to make some money, right? So they say, listen, we know that you're going to get rid of them. We can't force you not to. But Zuckerberg says, I will not sell one share, at least for the next year.
I'm going to lead the way. Yeah.
That's how much I believe in this company. Board members Mark Andreessen and Don Graham have also said, okay, we're going to sell some of our shares only to cover those taxes that we've got to pay for, that we talked about earlier. But beyond that, have no, quote, present intention to sell any shares. So there's a little bit of a damage control thing going on. It also
makes sense not to sell the shares when they're really, really low.
That's true.
Just generally speaking.
Well, yes, that's true. The idea is that hopefully it should go back up and that everyone just makes a lot more money. But it's a little bit of that. Let's put the brakes on anyone feeling like if I don't do it now, I won't have any money to gain. Mm-hmm. 6 months, 1 year down the road.
I mean, this move by Zuckerberg to make sure he's not selling off his shares. I mean, it should instill some confidence for the rest of the team. I mean, we've seen people up top at Zynga just like sell off things left and right, and then they end up leaving. And it doesn't give a whole lot of confidence to the remaining members of that company. So if your leader, who is obviously his not just his salary, but I'm sure a lot of his bonuses are tied to the stock price, I mean, he's not going to go anywhere. Why would Zuckerberg leave Facebook? I mean, it's his company. He has full control of it. It seems a little nuts that he would even contemplate doing it.
Do you think the falling stock price is a clever retention plan?
Yeah. Long-term people.
You don't want
10-year plan.
You don't want to cash out yet.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody thought that through. Some devious minds. The conspiracy is we will tank, and then I'll keep Zuck with his 57% control. Yeah, I'm sure. He's gonna I just think for the rest of the Facebook team, it's going to be a little bit of a confidence boost that their leader's saying, look, I'm not cashing out. I want to make sure that the company goes up. We have to stick around because it's Facebook. They're not going to. They need to exist right now.
Yeah, I mean, these are all smart, mature moves to help stabilize what's going on. I think, we're still seeing the results of the fact that that last minute, what they bumped the stock price before the IPO like $10, and that's all gone. That was probably the big mistake. I think we all saw that. But what's interesting here is, they say they're not going to sell any stock except what they need to cover taxes. Now, I am not an expert in these areas, but I've seen problems in the past wherein, okay, if somebody got 100 million shares of Facebook stock at the IPO price, where does the valuation of the stock come into play for determining their taxes. It's usually when it was granted. So if some of these guys have 100 million shares at, what was it, 30?
Mm-hmm. 30.
They have to pay taxes on $300 million. So they need to sell enough shares to pay the,
to cover that.
It's like the housing market.
Capital gains, 15%, the capital gains on those shares. So that's not going to be an insignificant amount of stock anyway. There will be some dilution by them selling off those shares.
Although I imagine some of them were granted stock before the IPO, in which case that's a different value. But that's a really good point. All right, we got a couple of political stories to finish off with. There's a great debate dividing this country right now, and at this time of the year, I know that the sides get really heated, but we want to be fair. We want to deliver you the information you need, so hopefully you can remember that we're not trying to take sides. We're just trying to deliver the information. Sarah Lane with the report on Android versus iPhone.
That's right. Politics has never been this fierce. We mentioned earlier in the show that the Galaxy S3 is the top-selling phone on Verizon and Sprint and T-Mobile, beating out the iPhone 4S at least last month from data from Canaccord Genuity. And I saw the chat room go a little bit nuts, like, Sammy's on top. Sammy's
Android
on top.
wins.
That's
iPhone
right.
sucks. Android
Finally, the iPhone users can just eat dirt. Well,
Four more buttons.
Michael Walkley over at Canaccord says, we believe this is the first month since the iPhone 4S launched back in, almost just a year ago, that it wasn't the top selling smartphone in the U.S. Again, as we mentioned, he says this is a lot to do, not completely to do, but a lot to do with the fact that people who would be buying iPhones are just waiting a little bit longer. So the last couple of months, you see a dip in iPhone sales, which is somewhat understandable because people don't want to buy the 4S when they know they're about to get something that's better. At the same time, and this is going to really tick off you Android users, a survey of 1,332 people by the online retailer Tech Bargains says that 22% of existing Android users are buying Apple's next iPhone. And of those, 7% were going to buy the new iPhone as soon as it was available online. 3% were even considering waiting in line. 13% said, I don't have a time frame in mind, but I still want that phone. Now, before you go, this is just a bunch of crazy Apple propaganda. If you look at the numbers for BlackBerry owners, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. 38% of current BlackBerry owners say they're going to switch to the new iPhone. Of that figure, 8% said, we want to switch so bad we're going to wait in line. You don't really need to wait in line anymore. Pre-ordering makes so much more sense. But that just, I guess, is indicative of the enthusiasm involved. And then, of course, for existing iPhone users, those numbers are through the roof. 64% of iPhone 4S owners plan to get the new handset at some point. 71% is for the iPhone 3GS, which, of course, makes a lot of sense because you're a couple cycles back at this point. Now, again, you either say, well, a survey of over 1,000 folks, almost 1,500 folks is a pretty good sample, or you might disagree completely. And of course, people who are more likely to participate in an action item like, I'm going to buy that iPhone, are more likely maybe to respond. So take these numbers with a little grain of salt. But I guess what's interesting to me about this is not only that, yes, iPhone and Android comment hate. I mean, it's almost impossible for me to read any more articles from iMore about the new iPhone case because it's just a bunch of crazy people getting way too bent out of shape about phones.
It's exhausting on all sides.
So
I
exhausting.
completely agree.
Yeah.
God.
I mean, it's like people show like it's like the worst sides of them. But
I'm hoping after the holiday shopping season, both sides can come together for bipartisan.
In a time of peace.
Yeah.
Yes, can we just have
Keep hoping
bipartisan
for that,
phoneship?
please, because I would love
I
to
gotta
see
say, I think we're missing the what the real point of this data is that 22% of those Android people, those are the people that mistakenly bought Samsung phones thinking that they were iPhones.
Somebody had to do it.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought I had an iPhone.
Well, that was, in all honesty, when I read this, I was like, I don't really know any Android users who are planning to get an iPhone because they're Android for a reason. However, that's also, I think, you have to factor in, if you have latest and greatest Android phones, I can think of a few models that people go, yeah, these are really great. That's different. Jason gets to play with the coolest phones, and so he knows how great Android can be. If you've got some lagging, older model, maybe a year or two older, that's running some version of Android, you might be more likely to say, I don't know. I just haven't really had the best experience. Maybe I'll go back to the iPhone, or I'll move over to the iPhone for the first time. Really depends on, I think, your Android experience thus far.
And everybody's going to have a different experience. I think what I feel like about part of this is a lot of Android users, a lot of new Android users are also first-time smartphone users, right? And so they go over to the smartphone, they say, okay, well, I'll get Android because it's free or because it's low cost. And like you said, Sarah, they end up getting a device that's maybe is great at first, but very quickly, and low-cost Android devices tend to do this in a period of time, tend to kind of degrade, slow down, the experience changes a little bit, and then they're thinking, okay, well, it's time to upgrade. I'm willing to pay more, and I'm willing to go, where my best friend is, and they're on iOS, and they jump ship.
We're only talking about 22%.
Right. I don't think that that's a horrible number, because I think that there's also probably a decent amount of people that are on iOS that are willing to switch to Android.
I would like to know what that number is. I would like to know how many iOS users say they would like to buy a Samsung Galaxy S3, or and we're talking about a wide variety of phones, as Jason points out, for Android users, from people who have very limited, in some cases, Eclair phones, right?
Yeah, which is depressing.
So of course they might be tempted to try out an iPhone.
Sure.
Versus a very monolithic organization. There's 3 models of iPhones you can buy out there, but it's people will switch. These
are your swing voters right here.
Yeah,
these are
right.
Independent swing voters, and every side trying to tempt them with promises of the sun and moon and stars. So.
Those yellow states you see on the map.
Buy this phone, fewer taxes.
And that Nokia 920 is yellow. It's going to get them.
That's it. Windows Phone's going to win all the swing states. It's the Ross Perot of our election. All right.
Nice.
Let's finish up with an actual political story with our tech-lection coverage. Don't worry, we're not going to get into monetary easing or things like that.
Who's the better candidate, Tom?
or pick a side. But sciencedebate.org has been, they started the last election, the presidential election in the U.S. in 2008, trying to get science higher in the list of things that people talk about. Not that the economy isn't important, not that these social issues aren't important, but wanting science and technology to be discussed more. So they haven't really been able to get a science debate happening between the two candidates, but they did get both candidates, both major party candidates anyway, to answer questions about science. And we're going to focus on question number 9, which was the internet. The internet plays a central role in both our economy and our society. What role, if any, should the federal government play in managing the internet to ensure its robust social, scientific, and economic role? Now, you can go to sciencedebate.org and read the full responses. It'll be a little long for me to read them entirely here, but roughly, President Obama said that he believes in a free and open internet. He also believes in legislation to protect intellectual property online, but not reduce freedom of expression, increase security risks, or undermine innovation. He believes in strengthening, everybody calls it cybersecurity. It's really just security when you're talking about the internet. Strengthen cybersecurity while preserving privacy, confidentiality, and civil liberties. Trying to say, well, I believe in all these things that make the donors happy, but I also believe in all these things that make the average citizen happy.
Unicorns and kittens.
Governor Romney said that it is not the role of the government to manage the internet. He blames the president for interfering with the basic operation of the internet, specifically the FCC's net neutrality guidelines, representing an Obama campaign promise fulfilled on behalf of special interests, but ultimately a solution in search of a problem, and made a point of opposing United Nations supervision of the internet. Didn't make any kind of comment on intellectual property. When I read through these statements, this is what I pulled out as basically the things that were worth paying attention to. These were longer responses than that, obviously, and they say a lot of things about freedom and loving and managing and bureaucrats and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was a little disappointed, frankly. I would like to see, and in fact this is true of some of the other scientific answers here, a real debate around tech issues. I understand that we're not the majority of people. We're much more enthusiastic about technology than everyone, but something like this, especially the intellectual property debate, which impacts everyone, I don't know. Am I just living in a bubble because of technology news coverage, or should this be a higher priority?
It would be nice if it were higher priority, but
I'm just living in a bubble. Okay.
Obviously, we're not gonna get hard answers, and we're not gonna get decisiveness in political. What is basically the stump speech response to this question. One side's answer was, we're gonna find the perfect balance to make everybody happy, and the other response was, they did it all wrong. We're gonna do it all right, and. It means absolutely nothing to any of us that are sort of in the know and understand what the real issues are here, and so it's disappointing. And I think that's all we're going to walk away with. Other than we got to keep pushing through, EFF and other organizations to make sure that the internet is protected.
I mean, to get a real debate going, it would take technology to reach everybody. Right now, we're just kind of like geeks. We like our tech, but the thing is, everybody's getting. At this point in the United States, the amount of smartphones that are taking off, that kind of penetration, that's the thing that's going to make people start wondering about.
Internet-connected televisions.
They're going to wonder, hey, why can't I stream this? Why am I not getting the same kind of treatment? Why do I have to use this application instead of this application when I want to get video or want to do video chat? It's not until the general public understands that this is an issue. I mean, the thing is, I think these weasel answers by both of them, and I'm going to say that, I know it's just got a lot of it's really wishy-washy, is actually a sign that there's enough people that know about technology in the general public that they would get irritated with a real answer. Because if this was something like, where do you stand on slavery? Well, there's an easy answer for that. But net neutrality, these two weak answers are possibly indicative of the fact that if they say something wrong, they could annoy enough of the general public that they could just lose a lot of voters, because maybe it's a lot more
the business interests that are supporting them too. You start saying I'm pro net neutrality, then all of a sudden AT&T and Verizon aren't going to give as much money to your campaign. So, yeah, they're just dancing through the minefield.
Sarah, anything to add before we move off of this?
I mean, I agree with Iyaz that these are all, he calls them weaselly answers. I just say they're intentionally vague.
They're typical political answers.
Yeah, I don't get a good feeling from anybody, and I never have. And every time something like this comes up, whether it's an incumbent president or, members of Congress, or, the only time that I think people start rallying and getting really upset is when there's a bill that's about to be passed. And they go, wait a second, this is going to screw with us. This is going to possibly force us to, take in less money, or we're going to be held criminally liable for things that we shouldn't be held criminally liable for. So that happens. And I think that even though, yes, there are a smaller number of people who care about political technology issues, they can be loud enough so that it spreads outward. But no, neither candidate here is telling me anything we haven't already heard.
I'll tell you what, though, if I'm elected, I will give you good things and stop bad things, and always finish with the randomizer.
Wow, you're following through on that promise even before being elected.
Right away. The high call, we talked about being able to touch the new Windows Phone with gloves on. The high call is gloves and your phone. It actually includes microphone, speaker, and Bluetooth in a pair of gloves that you then hold to your head, just like you're pretending to make a phone call, but you can actually make a phone call.
I think this is integral for the survival of, hey, give me a call. This used to be a sign. I don't know if you used to hold up your thumb and your pinky like this. You'd go, that's a call. But now with smartphones, it's like you're holding a slab. So this is very important that this little hand motion doesn't go away.
Now it means you're actually on the phone.
Right, you're on the phone with that little motion.
Or it just means hang loose, bro.
I hang loose. I'm on the phone. I'm not shaking my shaka. I'm talking to my braca.
It just looks like a mediocre peripheral for the N64.
What up, brah?
What up, brah? Yeah.
No. It really is.
Somebody
what it
Chad called them celibacy gloves.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Maybe.
Come on.
Well, gloves are a prophylactic in more ways than one, I suppose.
Always wear a glove.
Just be safe out there, everybody.
Let's move on to the calendar.
Let's. Hey, we've got an anniversary to celebrate. It is the iPod Touch's 5th anniversary.
Woo!
The iPod Touch was first shown on this day back at the Beat Goes On Apple event in 2007.
Also
Thanks,
the anniversary
Ken,
of the launch
for
of
pointing that out to
Voyager
me.
1.
Also that. Lots of anniversaries today. Everybody have some cupcakes. Battlestar Galactica's community game Diaspora has arrived, so fans of that can clamor to play.
Open platform game, very cool.
Yeah, LG Intuition with Verizon 4G LTE is official. It's $200 on contract. Will be available starting tomorrow, September 7th. Also tomorrow is Amazon's press conference, which TWiT will be covering. So our schedule it's not too different, but TNT will start half an hour earlier. So usually 10 a.m. Pacific. We will start at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. We will go about an hour, as we usually do, and then we'll start live coverage of Amazon's event at 10:30 a.m. Pacific.
Now, a note for those of you who download the show, you will be getting the show a little later than usual because we'll be waiting for Amazon to finish their announcement and include that in the downloadable version of the show. So live viewers have to watch a little earlier. On-demand viewers get the show a little later.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too much later, though.
We'll annoy everybody.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's see what's incoming, too.
Incoming message.
Got a couple good voicemails here. First one, on behalf of phones, why phones are still valuable.
Hi, this is Russell from Chicago. Love the show. Been listening for a long time. Calling in about leaving a voicemail about your voicemail segment yesterday or today. One thing I've noticed, though, is that texting and emailing, while people prefer it in business, sometimes you can short-circuit 30 minutes, an hour worth of going back and forth on email or texting by a 5-minute phone conversation. So I just wanted to put that out there, sort of the other side of that argument. Love the show. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience where you're trying to have a conversation over text. It's getting way too complicated. And then you call, and they're in a loud place, and you can't talk.
Or you leave a long rambling voicemail that they don't listen to. Right. That explained everything.
Also got a call about app.net and a possible idea for them.
Hey, D&D. I just had a quick thought about app.net. I was thinking, it feels like Twitter kind of delineates into two groups. You have the people who are broadcasting a lot, like you all, or people from CNN or other big celebrities or things like that. And then you have people that do a lot of following and use it as their way to get information. Do you think that maybe app.net could benefit from, say, a free offering where you couldn't post, but maybe you could reply to people or do private messages, something like that, so that not everybody has to pay the $50 to be in there? Anyway, love the show. Thanks. Bye.
That could be a good way to attract a larger user base, because I think as long as app.net stays, or appnet stays as a small group, it gets a lot harder for developers to get on board, or just people to get on board with AppNet at all. Because if you're having this small conversation with just like 15 people or something, it's not exactly the same kind of echo chamber you have with Twitter. So that, I thought that was a pretty interesting idea, with like a free tier that gives you somewhat access, but not full access.
A developer could do that. Could provide an app that actually displays people without having an account, maybe.
I couldn't know.
Yeah, they've got to figure something out, because that $50 is never gonna. They will never be commercially successful and gain the traction of even 1/10 of a Twitter at that steep an entry point.
Yeah, somebody called it Twitter for the 1%.
Yeah. Got an email from Seth, who writes in and says, I switched from Gmail to the new Outlook.com a few weeks ago. And although I kept my Gmail address, I've really been enjoying Outlook.com's clean interface and unique features. One thing I've noticed that could use some work, though, is the spam filter. With Gmail, I rarely had to worry about the filter catching anything it shouldn't. Not so with Outlook, but a few missteps are to be expected with a new service. Last week, though, Outlook.com spam filter, referred to as Microsoft Smart Screen, caught a message I never expected to see in my junk folder. Microsoft's own email service had blocked a notification regarding changes to their own services agreement. I clicked on the link in the message, and it was indeed brought to a website on Microsoft.com, the domain containing the new services agreement. I guess Outlook.com still has a few kinks to work out, and then he added a screenshot so we could see exactly what the issue was. He says, thanks for putting on a great show. Keep up the good work.
That's hilarious.
That is something I totally take for granted. I mean, I rarely even go into my Gmail spam filter.
I will say, for balance in this political time we live in, I have the same experience on Yahoo Mail as well. Their spam filter works great.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So get it together, Outlook.com. What's up? I mean, this is Hotmail rebranded. It should have a good spam filter. I don't understand why.
Well, it's too good, apparently. It's so good, it's turning against itself.
Yeah. There,
well, when you check your spam filter, half the spam that you'll get on Gmail is from Hotmail. So,
they're trying to compete with Gmail and block their own mess. All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks everybody joining us on the subreddit technewstoday.reddit.com. Appreciate all the folks who go in there and submit stories and vote them up or down. And always good to have you on, Ken Denmead. Let folks know where they can find your work and any projects or anything you got going on you want to tell folks about.
Well, stop by geekdad.com, of course, for daily stories, reviews, everything that's of interest to geeks and or parents, or both, and all of us are both. So, we're raising Geek Generation 2.0 is our motto. And you can catch me at Fitzwilly on Twitter. And we're just happy we just got back. We've got a bunch of post-PAX coverage coming up. We are reviewing a ton of cool board games and card games, things like that. And hopefully a lot of people will get excited about that. So thanks.
Excellent. Good to have you, Ken. Check them out. Like I said, geekdad.com. Thank you, folks, for joining us. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Renee Ritchie joins us tomorrow. I bet we'll be talking about some iPhone stuff. We'll see you then.